make. Be who you wanna be, cause what makes you unique is your identity. It's what makes up you and me. It's what makes up you and me. It's what makes up you and me. It's your identity. It's your identity. Yeah. It's what makes up you and me. It's what makes up you and me. It's your identity. It's your identity. It's what makes up you and me. It's what makes up you and me. It's what makes up you and me. It's your identity. It's your identity. It's what makes up you and me. It's what makes up you and me. It's what makes up you and me. It's your identity. It's your identity.
Welcome, 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 welcome. Thank you for joining me. My name is Lavender Williams. I am the owner of Candy Publishing, which publishes The Other Woman magazine, which comes out 3 times a year. 3 times a year. This is a segment also aired and produced by Candy Publishing, the Candy Network, Peeling Back the Layers. And tonight we have an exciting guest. I'm going to try to maintain my composure. He is very comical, although he has a very compelling story. His comic ways, his quick wit. It doesn't take a lot to make me laugh, but to laugh out loud, he's just got that extra something, and he's got to be the nosiest neighbor I've ever met in my life, the nosiest neighbor. We're going to talk a little bit about that nosy neighbor, and he's also the author of the book Pushed. I'm going to allow him to share more about that. But right now, without further ado, we are going to invite Dr. Deonte Moss in. Welcome, 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 Dr. Moss.
Hallelujah! Hey, Miss Williams, thank you for having me.
And welcome, thank you. Now, you all, he did that right before we went live. So I had to okay, what did you just do? But that is something that you do. You said before every interview, before you do anything live, that's what you do.
Yeah, my prayer always before I go on to anything is less of me and more of him. And that's how I usher him in.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, you caught me off guard at first, but you've been getting a lot of interviews. So if this is something that you do for every interview, you had an interview this morning at the radio station, local radio station. So you actually did that there?
Yep, and on air.
Okay. Did you catch him off guard?
They might look at me funny, but it wasn't funny. It's for him.
Well, you have a lot going on in your life right now. The author of your book, Pushed, and that came out when?
2019.
2019.
Right before the pandemic, because I was going to do a book signing, but because the pandemic hit, it got canceled. Yeah.
Wow. Well, most people may know you as the nosy neighbor. Now, I met you on TikTok. I didn't know anything about the nosy neighbor. I actually saw, I believe it was TikTok, your video holding up the cards saying how you were left on your grandmother's doorstep at the age of 3 and entered foster care at the age of 7, and you've lived in 10 foster care homes and just a lot of things in your young life. And at only 37 years old, Dr. Moss, you come to where you are now. Most people will look at your life and wonder, what's that song, that old hymn, How I Got Over? How
Mhm.
I Got Over. How did you
Mhm.
go from being left on your grandmother's porch, being in the foster care system for so many years, dealing with the death of one of your foster mothers, your mother being on drugs, and just a lot of traumatic things? How did you get here where you are today?
Well, the number one thing was my faith. My faith got me through the journey. And that's one of the reasons why I named my book Push, because I believe push is an acronym. It stands for pray until something happens every day. And I believe prayer saved my life. But it was the relationship that I had with God. So I believe prayer is not just holding your hands together and meditating and being quiet and
Right,
just talking to God. I believe prayer is keeping your mind on God at all times,
all
right?
times.
So whenever I'm driving in my car, I'm listening to some praise and worship, or if I'm at home, I might turn on YouTube and watch a TD Jake sermon or a Dr.
Mhm,
Miles Monroe sermon, or
mhm.
I might just scream out hallelujah randomly or whatever. I'm always trying to do things to keep my mind on uh on Christ. So
Oh,
I believe
Christ.
that is prayer, and that's built a relationship with me, with God, to be able to hear His voice to make the decisions that I make in my life.
And even as a child, how old were you when you realized what faith was? How did you get at 7 years old when you entered the foster care system? How did you know, or did you know what faith was or who your God was?
Well, see, my grandmother, who I doorstep I was left on, she had always planted the seed in me that Jesus loves
Okay,
me. So I
okay.
always knew that Jesus loved me, but
Mm,
I did have to go through life before I dedicated my life to Christ, and I didn't do
right.
that until like a teenager. So, but I always knew that Jesus loved me because my nana told me that from a very young age, and I always remember that. But I still had to learn and navigate. Through the juvenile justice system, foster care, 10 different foster homes, 4 different group homes, trying to figure it out. And even when I stayed with my biological mother, it was trials and tribulations I still had to deal with. I had a mother who was addicted to crack cocaine. She was had an abusive boyfriend who pimped her out, prostituted her. He also molested my sister, prostituted her. So it
Mm,
was still stuff I dealt with. I got into fights almost every day in junior high, in high school, because my mother, who was addicted to drugs, and my sister, who was out there with my mother, um, where most of the drug dealers in my neighborhoods were kids that went to my school. So I would hear every day what my mom and my sister did for drugs. And back in the day when I was growing up, your mama was like the worst thing you could say to somebody. And whatever happens in your house, stay in your house. And plus, we didn't want to go back to foster care, so we kind of didn't say everything out loud. Didn't want to tell people because we didn't want to get separated again like we did the first time. Because my mother did get clean and get custody back of us, but she ended up relapsing and stuff like that. So I would, try to figure this stuff out, and it came out violently because I didn't know how
mm,
to cope or deal with it. So I'm
mm,
fighting every day in school. I'm getting suspended, kicked out, grades is dropping. So then I developed this coping mechanism, which was making people laugh, right? I'm going to be the
mm.
class clown or the silliest person around, because if I make you laugh, you will be my friend and you won't talk about me, right? So you won't talk about my situation. And once I noticed that, when somebody brought it to my attention, which was some male mentors of mine and female mentors. I had a teacher named Trevor Jeffries that imparted a lot into me. Uh, Dean of students, Miss Bowman. I had a pastor, Dr. Pat McKinstry. I also had a role model, which was ended up being a foster parent that took me in, and I emancipated from his care. I seen his relationship with God was what intrigued me about God, because I never seen a
Mm,
man love God the way he did, and I admired that, and I wanted that for myself. So it was caring adults that kind of got me to where I needed to be, that helped me
right,
make the next step that I
right.
needed to do. So that's what I eventually wanted to be and wanted to do, being a caring adult for other kids, because that was one of the major things that helped and saved me get to by
Right.
getting to the next level.
You mentioned mentors. So you were in the school system. You were educated for what, 18 years? So you've had an
Yep.
opportunity. You've always had an opportunity to give back what
Yes.
adults gave you. So you were able to pour seeds, plant seeds, and water those seeds for all those 18 years. So break down those 18 years. Were you a teacher? What
So
did you do
I
for those 18 years?
I did some I was a behavior coach for 10 years, and that was with another mentor of mine, Kevin Colburn, who kind of took me under his wing. And what we would do is we would reduce safe school ordinances, acts of violence uh, that would happen inside a school building, right? And we kind of became the liaison between teachers, parents, and students, because sometimes they didn't understand each other, because some teachers didn't understand the students because they come from different dynamics. So I did that for like 10 years with a program that I had called the Push Program. So we did that. And then I also was like an administrator for a couple years, but then I also was a drama teacher. So what I would do is we would make like music videos, movies, plays, little skits and stuff like that. And we would put a lot of our stuff is on YouTube and things of that nature.
So
A
that
variety of different
organization
schools.
for, okay,
Huh?
different schools, you said?
Yeah, a variety of different schools.
Okay, okay. You mentioned the
Public schools and
program
charter
Push.
schools.
Say that
Yes.
again.
Public schools and charter schools.
Okay. You mentioned the program Push. Was that something that you created?
It was. Now I
Okay.
got it off of my mentor. My mentor was Kevin Colburn. So we had that program, which was the Coach's Corner. But then he ended up moving, and then I started my own program, and that's what a majority of the years of me working I would do. I would do the Push program, which was a behavior coaching program with students, and we would give them incentives and stuff to, because some kids they was just acting up because they didn't know how to deal with the baggage that they have
Right.
coming from home.
Right.
So,
Right.
I would get in there and figure out what was really going on so we can make a safe learning environment so other kids can learn. And I knew a lot of that because it was me. It
Right.
was me growing
Right.
up. So
So
I
they were
would
able to relate to you, or should I they you were able to relate to them, and that makes that
absolutely.
communication a little bit easier. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
wonderful.
definitely.
So your organization Push, is that where
Well,
you
that
got
was
the
that
title
was a
for your group?
program. Um,
Program.
you know what? I originally wanted to name my book Push Prayer Until Something Happened, but I got a revelation from God that prayer till something happen needs to happen every day. It's an everyday thing.
Right.
That's how you build a
Right.
relationship with God. You talk to him every day. When you build a relationship with somebody, you keep talking to, you keep spending time with
Right.
them. So
Right.
that's why I added the ED, and that's why the ED is emphasized on a book like that, because it was going to be Push, but then I had to add the ED because it was a revelation that God had given me.
Pray until something happens every day. That's
Every
right.
yeah,
Pray without ceasing.
yeah,
Yes. Yes.
because prayer work.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, I got a
Yes, it
line of
does.
shirts that I sell that I created that say "Pray for me," and I love wearing those shirts because people always come up to me and say, "I'm praying for you." I'm like, "That's yes, that's the best thing
You
you can
should have
do for
wore
me."
that tonight. You should have wore
I
that
know.
tonight.
I got on my
That would
Moss
have
and Marriage
sparked it.
today.
You got your
My Moss and
okay.
Marriage.
I'm glad you brought that up. Before we talk about you being such a nosy neighbor, all of us got a little nosy neighbor in us. But before
Yeah.
we go there,
Mhm.
let's talk about is it a ministry? You and your wife have a marriage
Yeah.
program ministry. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So Moss and Marriage, we are marriage influencers. Right. And now you can find all our stuff on mossandmarriage.com. We have all kind of social media pages on Facebook, Instagram, even Twitter. Right. So what we do is we share skills, tools, and challenges about marriage. Me and my wife will be celebrating 11 years of marriage here in November. We got married 11, 11, 11. So we was trying to figure, it's really because it wasn't a lot of people married in our family. So as soon as we got married, we became the instant example of marriage.
Okay.
And we like, we don't even know what we doing, right? So we
Who
start doing a
does?
whole lot of research, trying to figure it out, trying to find stuff to, make it work. And the most important part was adding God to it, right? Because I believe marriage is a God act, right? And one of our mottos is don't do marriage alone, right? We include God in everything we do. That's why we're working on a book right now called Goals, Moss and Marriage Goals. God oversees all love stories. Because without him, I don't know if my wife could have dealt with a lot of me, still healing. You know what I'm saying?
You know
But
what?
because she knew,
You have a big
because she knew I
personality.
trusted God. Yeah, and that might be a
Yes.
little bit much to some people. Turn it down a little bit, Dr. Moss. Calm down, sir. And she like, but she know I love God and I'm gonna listen to God at the end of the day. Because sometimes I made some suggestions that was Deonte, right? And she like,
Right.
no, we not doing no, none of that, right? But but she know when God, it's a God decision. She like, okay, God said that. Okay, yeah, we can do that. So
So
but yeah, Marcy,
speaking of your wife, that's how the nosy neighbor started. You were just trying to make your wife laugh,
yep, I was
right?
trying to make Dr. Yep, I was trying. She's a doctor too. She's a doctor of education. I'm a doctor of
Wow. Okay,
theology.
two doctors
But
under the same roof. Okay.
yeah. So the first nosy neighbor video was the vacuum cleaner in the middle of the street, and I was really just trying to make her laugh. I said, "I'm seeing what something." The police was called to the neighborhood, and I was like, "Let me go be nosy." The nosy neighbor in the neighborhood. What's going on? So I said, I grabbed the first thing out my house, which was a vacuum cleaner, and I went into the middle of the street. It wasn't on or nothing, but I just started vacuuming the street. But then
Lord.
the police noticed me. They started laughing. My wife recorded, she hysterical, and it was like 33 million views on Facebook. So I've used that first video. I said, wow, that was a lot of views. Let me use a marketing strategy and start putting my book in the
Yes,
next
in the
videos.
videos. Yes.
Yeah, so I started putting my book, being a nosy neighbor, putting my book in barbecue grills, ironing boards, whenever anything that would happen in the police, only safe situations, nothing serious, only where everybody's safe and it could be a safe situation. But then the police started buying my book out the grill and stopping me and asking for the book, and the book sales went up. So I was
And then
like,
you
and
took it to
then after that,
TikTok.
then
And
I
then
created the TikTok because they actually were on TikTok before I got on TikTok, and they were getting views.
people were
Other people were
sharing
taking from
them.
like, they were taking it from Facebook and putting it on TikTok, and they were going viral on
Wow.
there. So they was like, "Hey, you need to get on TikTok because your videos are going crazy on TikTok." And then that's when the news stations started coming and everything. And so then I posted a video on TikTok, and then it went viral. And so then monetization came where they started paying me for the videos and stuff like that. So it
So
never
TikTok
stopped.
was
So
paying you. TikTok started
yeah,
paying you. All
yeah, and
because
not
you were
much,
trying to make your wife
but
laugh.
yep, and sell the
Okay.
book. And it became, but then even when I would talk to the radio stations or I would talk to the police officers and even the news stations, the reporters would always say, like, do you even recognize what the nosy neighbor doing is bridging the gap? Police aren't looked at in the best light, especially in the black community and community and stuff like that. But they saying, you putting these videos together, making everybody laugh is making the police laugh, is making the community laugh, and they're all laughing at the same thing. Nobody's against each other. Everybody's like, make no more nosy neighbor videos. In my city, I was asked to throw the first pitch at a baseball game, but they didn't
Wow.
want me, Dr. Deonte Moss. They wanted the nosy neighbor. They said, "Can you bring the nosy neighbor and have him throw the first pitch?"
Oh God.
All
Okay.
right, who
We
am
gotta
I?
share
Chopped
video.
liver? It's like
I
my
got video.
Superman. I'm Clark Kent.
Okay, I gotta share. We got a few videos, and they're real short. I'm going to share because I'm sure people want to know, and they can find you by your name on TikTok, Facebook, Deonte Moss, And here is one of them. Let's play the interview first.
Are worth a watch. This is really cute. A Toledo man who's also a drama teacher at a local school is using his experience with improv to lighten the mood when it comes to police responding to a situation in his neighborhood.
Yeah, this is really interesting. Deonte Moss is his name, and he's created a series of videos called Nosy Neighbor with the goal of doing something funny and spontaneous, like this, maybe hiding in and popping out of a trash can. Now, although the videos were originally a way to promote his autobiography, which talks about bouncing back from hard times, he also used them, as you see him vacuuming the street, ironing in the front yard, as a way to bridge the gap between the Toledo Police Department and the black community and get a little TikTok famous too. And he clearly has achieved that second goal.
Yes, people are tuning into him.
They are.
It's, you know, he's trying to be lighthearted, and I think that he's teaching people something as well. After all, he is a drama teacher, and he's kind of dramatic. Can you tell?
He is. I love that one right there. Anything that brings the community and the policing force closer together, I love. I love it when police officers randomly just jump into a pickup basketball game in a neighborhood.
You know, my husband used to be a police officer, and he did that once.
I love that.
And it, like, really warmed my heart.
That's great.
Snapping photos.
That's great. Bringing them together.
It's really cute.
Okay, I'm going to play another one. Deonte, explain what you're doing. Deonte, unmute yourself. Are you muted?
Yes. So right now I am mopping the street. I seen the police were called over here to this house, and I'm in the middle of the street mopping it. But you can see the bucket has no water in it, and there's holes in the bucket. So the police got kicked out. So this is me being nosy, hopping out of trash can, which a lot of people couldn't fathom at all. They're like, "You really hopped in the trash can?"
Was the trash can clean?
It was the cleanest one I found.
Me, I'm super fly, super duper fly, super duper fly. Me, I'm super fly, super duper fly, super duper fly. Me, I'm super fly, super duper fly, super duper fly. Me, I'm super fly.
So you basically wait for an incident to happen and you show up.
Actually, I don't wait at all. Let me tell you something. All of these, I've never looked for anything. I would literally just be driving around and I will see the police. And if it's a safe situation, I will make a note. Now, I've been stopped at some situations where I could not record because it might have been a little bit too serious. And I would never want nobody's family or anybody to feel a certain kind of way about me making a certain video, you know. But if it's a safe situation, and I never know what I'm gonna do. It's all improv. That last one, I just literally walked in Vito's and said, "Hey man, can I make a video in here?" And he was wiping the windows. I said, I grabbed it. I said, "Let me use this." Went out there and I started. I can't stand the rain, wiping the windows while all that was going on. So, you know, I never know what's gonna happen. I surprise myself sometimes of what I do because I don't know. So. But you know, it works out, and we talking about 100 million views across all social media platforms.
100 million views. TikTok started paying you. You're known as the nosy neighbor. You're getting interviews from your local television stations and radio stations, all because you were trying to make your wife laugh. And she recorded the first video?
Yeah, she recorded the first videos, yeah. She did, and I had some neighbors record some of the first ones too. So it was a collaboration. But you know what? I think it's all for a reason. Now, for years, I've been promoting motivation, encouragement, inspiration. And I've always been this person, to, promote this, right? So every morning since I could remember as a teenager, I would always send motivational quotes to my friends and family, and they used to hate me because they like, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. Quit sending me this stuff. So like early in the morning, you're waking me up. So I was so happy when like MySpace came and Facebook and stuff like that, because now I could share it as post. I didn't have to text them anymore. I could share it as post. So I've always been this person sharing inspiration, motivation, and encouragement, right? But when the nosy neighbor and these videos started going viral, I started getting these giant followings, right? And I
Wow.
think it's only for God wanting me to spread my inspiration, motivation, encouragement, or him with the world. And I think that's really the basis of it, right?
Yeah.
I think God just creating my platform and making it bigger and bigger so I can tell more people about him.
Well, you know what? You've had some traumatic things happen in your life. It's good to have this part of your life a little bit lighter with some laughter, and you're bringing joy to other people. You've dealt with a lot of pain. Now, even though you used your comedy and making people laugh to deal with all that trauma in your life, what about now, Deonte? Because I'm sure that is all still with you. I'm sure you still get triggers from all that you've gone through. How do you deal with that and mentally, all that you've gone through, yet you're not hiding behind the laughter, but that's how you deal with it?
Stuff like this, right? Writing it down is what I did, right? I wrote down stuff that I never told anybody and I published it
Mm.
in a book, right? So that became healing for me because I would have to discuss it out loud now. And it became therapeutic for me because people would be at my book signings or they'll be on tour where I'm speaking and stuff, and they'll say, "Hey, you said in chapter 17, and I will have to talk about it out loud, right?" And it became healing, therapeutic for me. But then I also knew that I wasn't defined by my mother's and father's mistakes, and I had to be who I was supposed to be anyway. But not only that, I had to go back and get them. I had to be the
Mm.
generational curse breaker of my family. I had to go back and get my mom. I had to go back and get my dad. I had to go back and get my sisters and let them know that none of our lives are over. We can still be whoever we were supposed to be or what God called us to be. We still have purpose, and let's get to it. Because, I used to think that, I always had a sense of being successful or be
Did
making
you
something out of myself. But I
really?
did it I thought about it for the wrong reasons. I used to think, didn't nobody want me? Didn't nobody care about me? Watching me become successful. And all the people that were supposed to be there for me, they're going to be like, oh, I wish I would have, been there for him. But then
Yeah.
God changed that whole narrative. I had a conversation with my father that changed my life. I could count how many times I've seen my father before the age of 21. One time I seen him at a corner store. He didn't recognize me, and I died that day because I'm like, how you don't know me, and I'm your son. And I went to go
Mm.
visit him over my grandmother's house, which is his mother. We ended up getting to a fist fight that day because I was so angry, and it built up in me. But then I would see him later as an adult, and I would see him at a corner store again, ironically. And when I saw him at the corner store, I came out the corner store. He just started bawling and crying, and he started telling me all this stuff about my life that I didn't even know he knew because I hadn't been talking to him. But he started telling me, and I knew I had to forgive him because of my relationship with God, right? So I forgave him, but he started going to church with me, and I wasn't really all the way comfortable at first, but I knew it was a God thing that I was doing. So he started going to church with me, and my father one day after church had the most powerful conversation I ever had with a person with me, and I know it was a God conversation. My father after church one day told me to teach him how to be a man. And I said, what? This is my biological father. He said, teach me how to be a man. I said, what does that mean? What are you asking me? He said, all my life I had problems. I had issues. I had stuff that I did not know how to deal with. He said, that's why I sold drugs. That's why I used drugs. That's why I was in and out of prison. He said, but you had trauma and you dealt with it head on and you handling your business. He said, you a real man. I want to serve the God you serve. Teach me how to be a man. And I know my life changed that day because I realized my success wasn't for me. It was to go back and break generational curses, bring my sisters with me, bring my mama with me, Bring my daddy with me. Generational curses will be broken when they met me. I am the Joseph of my family, the Moses of my generation. And it's a lot of us like that, but we just got to get there and realize that.
And you're in Ohio, right?
Yes, I am. Yes, ma'am.
You're in Ohio. So you talk about how it wasn't just for you, but you had to go back and get. And that's the whole sojourner truth. You know, a lot of people will become successful and they will leave their city or their state. And there are no examples there of how you can make it, how you can come from the bottom and rise to the top. And you're a living example of that. So do you have any plans to leave Ohio? Is that where you were raised in Ohio, or was it different cities and states?
I was born and raised in Toledo, Ohio, and that's where I still reside. My wife is from Wisconsin, so we visit there a lot occasionally. But Toledo is where I live and where I'm at. Yes.
How did you meet your wife from Wisconsin? What is
so
her
my
name?
wife moved. Her name is Dr. Deonte Moss.
Dr.
Right?
Deonte Moss. Okay. How did you meet Dr. Deonte?
I met her when I was 12 years old. We met at a swimming pool. She was there with her little sister and little brother. I was there with my two little sisters. We met that day and we were swimming, and she asked me to kiss her underwater. Now, I cannot swim. So I almost died that day because I went and got that kiss. Right? And I felt like she had to take care of me ever since. So she's been with me.
So you almost died to give your wife to be, who you didn't know was going to be your wife, a kiss underwater.
No. Yeah, and then we would see each other for years after that. And then, you know, she had graduated school. We both were. I was in school. We were working at the Boys and Girls Club together. It's kind of where we reconnected as friends for a long time. Matter of fact, I think she had a boyfriend at the time when we were working at Boys and Girls Club. I was talking to another young lady. Those situations didn't work out, and we were just really good friends. We always, you know, she went to a church, I went to a church. We always have spiritual conversations. One day it just clicked with me. I said, you know what, I'm gonna say something to her. I said something to her. She told me, if you ain't trying to marry me, don't talk to me. I said, well, who does she think she is? Why would she say that to me? And I was like, okay, I'll talk to you. I'll marry you. And you know what? We dated for 9 months before I proposed.
Wow.
We dated for 9 months. I proposed on 9/26/11. And we got married 11/11/11.
So how does the nosy neighbor and all of the status and celebrity and attention, how has that influenced or affected your marriage? How's Dr. Moss?
Well, Moss's marriage has been in the making since the beginning. We always knew this was the calling that God had for us as a Moss marriage, you know, to be the example of marriage. You know, so we've always known that, and we know that. I think just the rest of the world is catching up. You know, God already gave us the visions and the dreams. He's doing it with us. We say Moss marriage is made up of 3 of us. It's God, me, and my wife.
Wow. And hopefully after you talk to your wife, that we will see some articles on marriage from the both of you all on Moss and marriage. And with that being said, Deonte, what would you say to someone who's having a troubled life? Say there's a teenager out there on the streets. There's so much crime in the world today. I mean, it makes my heart heavy to think about how so many young people are being lost to guns and gangs. And, you know, sometimes that's the only environment they know. They were born in the streets because their parents were in jail or on drugs, just as yours was on drugs. What would you tell them to give them a little hope?
So I speak with so many youth. I'm still speaking to youth. I'm working in juvenile jails. My wife works at a juvenile jail. So we go down there and do Bible studies and things of that nature. But I'm speaking to so many kids and they keep telling me that they hurt. They say, my mama don't love me. My dad ain't been there. And I always let them know that they don't have to be defined by their mothers and fathers' mistakes. Your life is still your life and you have to figure it out. And God can heal anything. I really believe God can heal anything. So I tell them, you still got to be who you're supposed to be because you are probably the generational curse breaker in your family. So you got to go handle your business so you can be who you supposed to be to go back and get them, because that's what I had to do. And you know what? I take the time out right now to thank God for giving me back my mom and my dad, because we are in an excellent place right now. My mom's
Really?
been clean over a decade. I ended up finding a lot about her story.
Mm,
I used to get mad at my mom because she was prostituting with her daughter. And I'll be like, how could you do that? But then I realized there was a generational curse. I found out through conversation with my mom that she was being prostituted by her father, molested by her
wow.
father.
Wow.
So I understood the trauma. I didn't condone it, but I understood what I was dealing with, right? So you figure this stuff out. I had this Father's Day, I had to honor my father. I had to speak at an event and I honored my father because it's hard for you to know that you're wrong and you
Mm,
come back and be who you're supposed to be afterwards. Now, my
mm.
father wasn't necessarily there for me as a kid, but as an adult, he's been everything I needed him to be. And I go visit him all the time. He lived around the corner from me. I go speak to him, sit on the porch, you know what I'm saying? Just have our conversations, learning about me and who I am. And I enjoy that because it used to be empty places in my heart because I was like, my mama wasn't there, and my daddy, the daddy wasn't there, and it hurt. But now those places are fulfilled because I trusted God, and He
Mhm.
brought that relationship to where it needs to be. Now I can't. It'll be almost too. It ain't never too much, but it's like overwhelming now. My mom will come in here,
Overwhelming.
hug on me. If she was here right now, she'd be all over me, loving on me. She was at my graduation when I graduated as a doctor. She was laying on the floor taking pictures. Sit, snap, snap. Just excited about who I'm becoming and what God is doing in my
Right.
life and what God has done for her. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just so happy that I trusted God. And that's
And
what I
you're
would tell
giving it
those.
back. And you're
And I'm
giving it
going
back.
and I got to, and that's what he told me to do. He just said, just tell your story. And that's all I tell those kids or those men. We have a man's day that I do where I go speak at. I speak with youth over here. We do this marriage stuff. I'm speaking all over the nation. I have an agent. So I'm going all over the nation speaking to foster kids, foster parents,
Right.
administrators, students. So we know I'm available for speaking engagements. You know what I'm saying? So I
Say that
go over
again.
and
Say that
I'm
again.
available for all speaking engagements.
Right, right. Get it
Yeah.
out
So
there. Get it
so
out there.
so I'm doing this. I'm promoting this message wherever I go. And God, and I used to think like, God, why you want me? Because nobody really want to be called, right? No, when God calls you, some of us
Right.
like Jonah, like I don't feel like it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But
Not today.
he just told me to tell my story and he do the rest, and that's what he's done. He's done the
Now
rest. I just do it.
I asked you how you deal with your past trauma today, and you were saying you wrote the book. You wrote the book, and
Yes.
when you're interviewed, just like now, you have to tell your story. Sometimes I sound like a broken record when I say, "What's your story? What's your story?" Don't die with a book in you. We all have a story. It doesn't have to be a traumatic story. It doesn't matter if you sit on your sofa every day. That's a story. You've got a
Mm-hmm.
story, but it's therapeutic. Writing, as you mentioned, is therapeutic. And I'm so happy you were able to get that out of your head and on paper, and you're still healing. You're
Yeah.
still healing because you continue to share your story And most people don't realize how important it is to just write. You don't have to publish it, just write, just journal, whatever it is that you're feeling. So, with all of that writing, ta-da, you became a doctor. Talk about that journey.
It was God's plan. Honestly, I knew that I was working towards a goal, and then once I got past that goal, he was like, "I want you to do this now." And then I got to that goal. Then I get the masters, and then I didn't really think that far. My wife was a doctor before me for a couple years, but she thought she could tell me what to do around the house. She was like, "Wash the dishes, Master Moss." And I was like, "Hold on, wait a minute, let me go get this doctorate so we could be on the same level." But so we gotta go. But no, I think it was a part of the plan. We knew what we was trying to do with Moss and Marriage, and we thought it would be pretty awesome to have an education background as teachers with her doctorate, and to have a theology background with the Spirit, and put that together to create this ministry and this influence, and Moss and Marriage. So I'm glad it worked out, and we both did what we said we was gonna do. Because marriage is hard. You got to put in the work. And I'm glad to have somebody that's putting in the work with me.
Exactly. You guys are evolving together. Now, there's a comment that I want us to talk about. Sandy, thank you for joining us. Thank you all for joining in. I appreciate you. We have another doctor here, Dr. Sandra Winborn. She's all about people getting their doctorate. She actually counsels and helps guide people to get their doctorate. So Sandy Wynn here is a good friend of mine. She says, "I need to remember words about not letting parents define you. I have a feeling I may need those words of wisdom for my grandchildren." Because, that's something we don't think about. I have grandchildren also. So just because your parents have a journey doesn't mean that has to be your journey. It doesn't have to define you. Speak a little bit more about that. And do you have children yet?
I do. I have two daughters. I just dropped I got a daughter that's at the University of Bowling Green right now.
Okay.
She'll be 19 in November coming up. Then I have another daughter, is 21. She has a 1-year-old. Yeah.
Oh.
So I am a grandfather.
Grandfather.
And we'll be celebrating his birthday in a couple weeks here.
Wow. With all of that history that you've had in your life, and your father, when you saw him on the street that day, what will you say to your children and grandchildren? Your life has changed, but what was that defining moment? What was that defining moment for you?
Well, I had my daughter at an early age. I was 15 years old, and I planned it, right?
You planned it?
Me and my high school sweetheart basically was like, we gonna have this baby. And I thought it would keep me out of foster care when I did it. I was like, basically this, and I was like, if we have this baby, and I felt like nobody cared about me, nobody loved me but this girl. And I was like, I could do whatever I want to. My mom was out in the streets, so I could make my own decision. And this is 14-year-old thinking, right? 14-year-old thinking. And I planned. We planned it. Now, nobody should be having kids at that age, because I'm a kid myself, right? And I really felt like that's how I was growing up. I basically was just like growing up with my kids, trying to figure out. I feel like I'm just now becoming the full mature adult I need to be a father. But I think God has guided it all the way through to where I had two amazing daughters who, and shout out to their mom, because they handled their business, did what they were supposed to do. And I've never really had no major issues and stuff like that. And I think that's because of praying parents and praying grandparents in my life and stuff like that. I think they covered me and covered my daughters, and me praying covered my daughters to have them to be who they are today, because they are amazing individuals. And I just thank God that he covered my babies, where the generational curses stopped with me. and they will still be able to live the lives that they're supposed to do and are doing. You know, my daughter's working, she's doing good, she's raising her son. I got a daughter that's in Bowling Green University, and she's getting ready to be an architect. They had great sports athletes, you know, cheerleaders. They both were homecoming queen, you know, so prom queen. So, you know, I'm just extremely proud of them and who they are and what they're doing.
I'm sure you are. There was another comment from Dr. Winborn, dishes versus doctor. That was a significant push. Now, going back to your book, I want to help push your book, Pushed, Pray Until Something Happens. How long did it take you to write your book?
It literally took 10 years. You know why? Because I kept trying to get it published, but God showed me how to self-publish. So I self-published my book. I didn't use anybody. I had to figure it out. So I had to go get my own copyright, my ISB, you know, in all that stuff. I had to do it by myself. And, you know, I had people that help. I had an uncle who's a journalist, so he edited it for me.
Okay,
you know,
great.
I had a friend, you know, to show me how to format it. So I had to do it all myself. But when I got it together, it was worth it.
Great. So it took you 10 years to write it, and you decided to self-publish. Now that is something that I'm sharing now. I'm transitioning from publishing books to coaching self-publishing. I want to teach them how to fish. They can save the money to self-publish. It's not that difficult, is it? You just need a little guidance.
And I was procrastinating. I knew God had me on a timeline.
There you go.
I knew that I had to get the book done in a certain amount of time. God told me vividly that I needed to get the book done by a certain age. So I know when I was coming on that deadline, I started to get to work. And it was kind of hard at first because, you know, it's kind of hard to sometimes sit down, even though I'm just telling my story. I didn't know what to, you know, because, you know, some of the stuff I ain't never told nobody. I never talked about me being molested out loud, right? But I wrote it in the book. And then it became a pivotal part of the book because it's a whole bunch of men that don't talk about it.
You're right.
But then, you know, after I was able to get it out, so many men came to me like, that was my story. You know what I'm saying? And then I found out through the situation, through other foster kids and stuff like that, or other kids, that it happened to them too by the same person. And I felt like maybe if I would have said something because out of embarrassment, I didn't say nothing at a young age, but maybe if I would have opened up my mouth, I could have saved other kids. So now my job is to tell people that, because they might be in a place where they can save other kids or other people from getting hurt and stuff like that. So, you know, it's a learning lesson. You know, it's something that, you know, I know that I have to do now. But like I said, it's a healing process, and it became therapeutic because these are things I have to do now. And I made my book. My book is 100 pages, and I did that on purpose because I wanted to make sure that my high school students could read it and my junior high students could pick it up. So they'll tell you, they're like, I read Charlotte's Web and Pushed, or Dr. Seuss and Pushed. Like you know, this is like one of their second book or first book. So I made it purposely so they could read it.
Right.
So
and it's not about the number of pages. It's the content. It's what's inside that counts.
Oh, and it's packed. Oh, it's packed.
Say it again.
It's packed. And it's so packed that it is going to be a movie. So that's all I can say.
Say it again.
It is going to be a movie.
Congratulations.
But I don't know how Hollywood do. I'm just trying to get a cameo in a movie about me. I'm trying to talk to Hollywood so they could just give me a cameo in a movie they're going to make about me. That's all.
Well, you know, they say if you stir enough noise, make enough noise about your book, the right people will hear about it. You definitely have a compelling story. I can see that going to the big screen. I can see it being a movie. You've been through hell. You've been through hell and back. And they say the best sellers are the stories that we don't want to tell, the secrets that we keep to ourselves, like the molestation. You're right. Most men are not going to share that. They'll take it to their grave. But because you shared it, because you peeled back some layers, other people came forth. So I always say we don't go through the mess we go through in traumatic times for ourselves. It's usually to share with someone else who's about to go through that, who's been through that, and doesn't know how to heal from it. It's a reason. There's nothing new under the sun. There's nothing new under the sun, and we have to, like you said, open our mouths and share it. But for whatever reason, we're embarrassed or we don't want to share that part of our lives. So I commend you. I commend you, and whatever I can do, I share this with everyone, whatever I can do on my platform to help you. I'm glad you took 10 years to write it, because it's not going to take 10 years for it to get to the big screen. Even if it doesn't go to the big screen, think about how many lives you've changed. So what was your why? I always say you got to have a why and a who. Why are you writing your book, and who are you writing to? What was your why? Why did you feel compelled to share, open up and share all of that you went through?
So I know generational curses need to be broken. And I knew I needed to be an example as a foster kid to so many foster kids that's out there, right? So, only 31% of foster kids graduate high school and go on to college or do that, right? Only 1% go on to get their master's or their doctorate. I'm a part of that 1%. When I say I'm the Moses of my generation, that's what I'm trying to be. That's why I'm working so hard with these youth. That's why I'm talking to these men every chance I get. That's why I'm doing these speaking engagements across the nation, going around telling my story, because I have to be the spark. Tupac said once, I bet I spark the next person that's going to change the world. I just got to do my part, and I'm going to continue to do my part.
Well, you know what? I thank you again. Before you go to the big screen and blow up, and you're doing local news now, you'll be doing NBC and maybe 60 Minutes one day.
I did NBC. I did NBC a couple of days ago.
I'm glad
I did NBC a couple of days ago. Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
Talk about that. You were on
NBC.
NBC.
It was good. Yeah. NBC 24. So we did our thing on NBC 24. I talked about and promoted Man Day, which is a group that we have set up here in Toledo, where we got men coming together in the community to talk about traumas that they deal with, that they don't get to talk about out loud. A lot of men hold stuff in. They felt like they're not supposed to cry or talk about real life situations, right? And they hold it all in. That's what you see on the news. You see them exploding with stories like that. We created this atmosphere with a gentleman I got with named Mr. Hassan, and a group with Uniquely Sons with Miss Abina Rowland, right? We created this atmosphere where we can go uniquely saving our sons, and created this Man Day where we can get it all out so we can heal and find almost like a group setting of therapy with each other. And it was amazing. We just had our first meeting the other day, and it was totally amazing and deep conversation. Now, I can't wait to get to the next one, which is in a couple of weeks. So it was powerful. Yeah. And then also I got to talk about the book, Moss and Marriage, us being marriage influencers and things of that nature and stuff like that. So it was powerful.
Well, are you working? Do you have a full-time job? If so, you're going to have to quit it, right? What are you doing?
I'm not. I'm definitely doing the speaking engagements. That's what I'm doing. I'm going around the nation, telling pushed, telling what God did for me.
I love it. That is so wonderful. And you know what? Thank you, Antoinette, for joining us. I'm part of the 1% in NBA that grew up in foster care and adoption.
Come on, Antoinette, you better tell somebody. Yeah.
Yes.
Me and Antoinette did it together. Quit playing.
Yes, and actually Antoinette will be on Peeling Back the Layers in November. She's scheduled for November.
Okay.
She has a
We definitely
compelling
gonna tune
story
into that.
also. Yes, yes. So we have just a couple more minutes left. Let's see what Sandy says. Men nowadays are shut down by others. So many rape victims, abuse victims by spouse and or family. Yes, most workplace deaths. Yes, men like you are needed. Definitely. Definitely. Yes. And you know what? You taking the time, stepping out on faith, not working, doing this where you are working, but you're doing something that you love. You're sharing your story, peeling back the layers. There you go.
Yep. Doing purpose, go. My why.
Your why. Your why. And I'm going to take, just for those who missed it, I'm just going to share 2 of those short videos right quick of the nosy neighbor. And you guys make sure you go to TikTok and follow him, Deonte Moss.
Yeah, make sure, Facebook, TikTok.
Hit yourself. Say that again.
Yeah, it mutes every time the video come on. So this is me mopping the street with no water, with a bucket with holes in it. And I'm doing this because they're making a call and I'm trying to figure out what's going on. I'm being nosy. But the police couldn't contain themselves. Yeah, and they couldn't contain themselves. They started laughing at me. Yeah. So this one actually got over 50 million views, this particular video.
And you're mopping
by
with
itself.
No water. You're mopping the street with no water. And you got how many views?
This one, across all the platforms, this is my biggest probably video to date. And that was almost half of the views, 50. This is when I came back from, I took a hiatus from the nosy neighbor, came back and did this one. This one went crazy. I was like, hey.
I think they went
the
viral.
News channel stuff.
All
those went viral.
I think they're so popular because we all have a little nosy neighbor in us, but you were bold enough to actually put it out there. You put it out there. You don't just look through the curtain or through the blinds. You go in the middle of the street and act like you're doing something when and that's actual footage. That's police answering a call. And you go out there in the middle of their doing their job, and you will go on the street and mop. See, it takes a lot of nerve to do that. You couldn't pay me to do that. That's probably why I won't be on TikTok.
Hey, a lot of Black people tell me that all the time. They say, "What are you doing?" But it worked out, safe. And I'm glad that they embraced me. The police have been, they buy my books. They come up to me and they buy my book. So I'm appreciative of that. And a lot of people notice the book because of those videos. And, it's sold everywhere. So you can get my book anywhere and everywhere books are sold. I'm talking about Barnes and Noble, Walmart. You probably get at your local library or anywhere. Amazon where it's a bestseller. So it's everywhere. And that's a God thing. That's a God thing.
Well, those were your closing remarks. There you go. Those were your closing remarks. Again, available wherever online books are sold. Please follow Deonte Moss on TikTok, Facebook. He's everywhere. So you all have met him right here on Peeling Back the Layers. Thank you again. I can't say before you go on national TV, you've already been. Thank you for gracing my platform with your presence. I appreciate you. Thank you. Forever grateful.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and we will be following you. And thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your time. They're all saying thank you to you, Deonte. And congratulations. Thank you, Keitra. Congrats, Dr. Moss. You are a true inspiration, and we're so glad you are walking in your purpose. And with that being said, we're going to close. Let me acknowledge my sponsor, Attorney Robert C. Allen, and I appreciate you guys again for tuning in, and stay tuned for the next Peeling Back the Layers with Miss Jerry Lloyd Person, and you will be seeing advertisement for that. So until then, I thank you.